This man embarrassed you at the altar. Heavy on the embarrassment. And after a wedding that did not happen, a year later, he's saying he regrets it. And your response to that is you're possibly still open to dating him. Girl, you're the ultimate pick-me. I don't know if you could get more pick-me than that. Hi everyone, my name is Dimitri and welcome back to DimitriTube. Love is Blind, Season 6 AD. Let's talk about it. As always, if you're enjoying my videos, please go ahead and pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. I'm a growing YouTuber and the likes and subscribes really help me out. So was it just me, or were the women this season more desperate than ever? And don't get me wrong, every season of Love is Blind, there is an air of desperation. But this season, more than the rest, the women just seemed more desperate to me. If you agree, let me know below in the comments. In this video, I'm gonna talk about AD from season 6 of Love is Blind, and we're gonna talk about how she was the ultimate pick-me. Now, if you don't know what a pick-me is a woman that will do anything for male approval. She will embarrass or throw other women under the bus to achieve this goal. And in terms of AD, heavy on the embarrassment part. So let's dive in and talk about it. So when AD was in the pods, she connected with Matthew and Clay. And y'all, these men would tell AD anything and she would eat it up. For example, on the first episode, Matthew tells her,
"What is my greatest accomplishment? Finding you."
Now, I thought that was way too heavy and a bit too mushy, but AD ate it up. And then Clay tells her he enjoys the veils of Love is Blind and getting to know each other without the physical. But then in the same breath, he asks what she looks like and says,
If I'm gonna propose, that's something I need to know.
Regardless of the emotional connection.
Regardless of the emotional connection, you know?
And then he goes on to list physical traits that he wants in a partner.
Yeah, I kind of lean towards more like petite. My favorite attribute is like lips, butt, and all that stuff.
So instead of questioning why Clay decided to do this experiment at all, she just lets it go. And not only that, while they were in the pods, Matthew was in a love triangle with AD and Amber, and AD finds out Matthew was telling her and Amber the same things, and she confronts him about it. And Matthew responds to her and says,
"Some of the things I said to you were much more deep than what I said to her. Like the first thing I wanted to do."
And she just lets that rock. Like, it's clear AD will let these men tell her anything. And don't get me wrong, I like AD as a person, but she's a little desperate. Ultimately, AD ends up choosing Clay, and this man was a walking red flag the entire time. And I don't know what's worse, being the red flag or being the person that blatantly ignores the red flags. And I've had some time to think about this, and I think AD is worse. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Clay showed AD multiple red flags and she just ignored them and carried on. And we're gonna go through them because there were 3 major ones in the pods. First, Clay admits to using being smooth as a veil because he's never been chosen. This was such a huge red flag to me because Clay admits that he has toxic behavior, but he still does it. Next, Clay says he has to be physically attracted to someone and he lists the physical features he wants in a partner. And it's wild that AD ignored this because, like, sir, did you miss the entire point of the experiment? I know for a fact Nick and Vanessa explained the experiment to you. You're supposed to fall in love with someone for their personality, not by looks. And for you to tell someone on the other side of the pods that you have to be physically attracted to them, you're clearly missing the point of the experiment. And lastly, at one point, AD is in the woman's side of the house talking with another contestant, and she says that Clay is someone she would normally fall for.
Clay is somebody that I would 100% fall for.
Yeah.
Baller, life of the party, loudest one, athlete.
So the point of this experiment is to try something new and to not do what you normally do in the real world. And AD recognizes that Clay is the type she would normally go for in the real world. AD, that has not worked for you in the past. That's why you're here in this experiment right now. So why are you continually doing the same behavior? So Clay and AD finally meet and there's definitely a connection there. But of course Clay spits it's even more red flags. He says, the one thing I yearn for is to always be validated. Clay, let's be serious. You're going on this show to seek validation from someone else? Next, if you made it this far in the video, please go ahead and pound that like button for the YouTube algorithm. And he also says, I never thought I'd fall in love with someone's personality. So what did you think love is? Like, did he think it was all physical? And not only that, upon their initial meeting, Clay tells her that he's a big baby.
Just be in your presence. You know, I'm a baby.
You are a
right?
baby.
Yeah.
I can feel you sinking in.
Y'all, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Please believe them. After that, Clay and AD go to the Dominican Republic and not really much happens, but then after that, they finally go to the real world. And while they're in the real world, multiple things happen that show Clay is just not ready for marriage. There's a moment when Clay and AD are in the kitchen and Clay is admiring her wedding ring, and Clay proceeds to ask her,
I was just thinking.
Oh, do men wear rings? Like,
Yes, bro, you are definitely getting a ring.
Now, this was one of the realest moments out of the entire season. There were a lot of real moments this season, but this one was so real to me. First, Clay lacks a certain level of emotional intelligence. I'm not mad at him for this. This is just who he is, and you kind of just have to accept it. And if you're a woman and you decide to date Clay, it takes a certain level of patience to deal with this. And this is why I actually thought AD and Clay were an amazing match, because AD was so patient with him and so gentle with him. AD does not get mad at him. She does not get frustrated with him. She isn't like, nigga, are you dumb? Like, she explains to him, yes, you do get a ring and you get it at the wedding. And she is just so patient and so nice and so gentle in explaining this to him. In general, a lot of guys just don't know much about weddings and they do not know the specifics about weddings. And overall, due to just the way the culture's going and the expense of a wedding, people are having less weddings. So I'm assuming Clay has not been to many weddings, and going even further, he probably was not heavily involved. He may have just been like a guest. He wasn't like a groomsman or anything. And this comes into contrast to women who basically have their wedding dresses picked out by the age of 5. And this very much shows one of the main differences between men and women. But please do not get it twisted. I'm not giving Clay all the grace. It's 2024, and this question was easily Googleable. Like, he could have Googled, do men wear a wedding ring? And he could have done a little bit of research himself and tried to figure this out. But at the end of the day, he didn't. And he also just seems like one of those guys who has to have things kind of spoon fed to him. And also, I guess he's just not that observant. If he just goes to a grocery store or goes to the gym, I'm sure he would see a ton of men with wedding bands on, but I guess he's just not that observant. But all of that aside, I absolutely love this moment because a lot of dudes just don't know much about weddings, and for AD to just be so patient with him and explain it without any judgment, I just love that moment. Next, AD is very self-aware, but also not. AD and Clay have another one-on-one, and AD admits she kept repeating patterns in her life, so she decided to go to therapy to work on that. And then later in the conversation, she says she feels like she's undeserving of love. And that moment was just so pick me. I felt like I was watching Meredith Grey on Grey's Anatomy.
So pick me. Choose me. Love me.
So then later on in the conversation, Clay says he doesn't even know the rules of marriage.
marriage doesn't have to be traditional. Like, I don't even know the rules of marriage, honestly.
Ain't no rules.
Like what? I can think of one rule easily off the top of my head. Don't f other people. That's very much a cardinal rule that most people would agree is a major rule of a marriage. But AD responds to him and says, there ain't no rules. And this is where AD royally f***ed up. Why did AD tell this man that? Have y'all ever read Julius Caesar? In the play Julius Caesar, there's a line where it's like, give a man an inch and he'll take a mile. And that is Clay to a T. Give Clay an inch and he will take a mile. Clay is the type of person, if you tell him that there are no rules in a marriage, he'll believe you. And he'll take it to heart and truly act like there's no rules. And I'm gonna mention the Julius Caesar thing again later in the video, so keep that in mind. And overall, there were red flags all over this conversation, but AD and Clay are just so cute together and he's so charming that it was just so easy to ignore. And this is why AD and Clay were such an interesting couple, because they're so much fun to watch together. And as a viewer, you think in your head, like, they are very much meant to be together. Then later on episode 7, Clay and AD have another conversation, and Clay tells AD he does not want to let her down. And he also says he gets in his head and he's worried about the marriage. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I thought this moment was kind of cute because Clay did mean well, but AD could very much see that he was getting cold feet. And what makes it even worse is at this point, it's just like, Clay, do you not understand what you signed up for? The purpose of Love is Blind is to get married at the end of this. So for him to start getting cold feet and say, I don't want to get married, it's just like, dude, do you not know what you signed up for? This is supposed to end in a wedding. This is what gives the show some stakes. Then later on in the episode, Clay admits to AD that one of the reasons he's worried is that he's never seen a black man be faithful in a relationship. Now let's unpack this. First, Clay and AD were very religious. Actually, this whole season had a lot of religious undertones, and it's pretty evident that they're Christian. If they're not, somebody put it in the comments, but I'm pretty sure they are. And as a good Christian, you know, to be a good person is a choice, and you choose to be a good person every day. So why does Clay not just change the narrative? And yes, I totally understand that's easier said than done. But if you've never seen a black man be faithful in a relationship, be the black man yourself that you want to see in the world. This is not Oedipus Rex. It is not your fate to end up just cheating on your wife. Clay, you have free will in this situation, and part of having free will is choosing to do the right thing. And the fact that he didn't see that was pretty wild to me. Clay, be the bigger person and just choose to do the right thing every day. And yes, I know, easier said than done, but you could do it if you wanted to. Anyways, after that, on episode 8, Clay shows AD his house, and his house is very unfurnished and in need badly of a woman's touch, and he even admits he needs a woman's touch. And this was possibly the most toxic thing he did in their relationship, and it very much showed that he lacks emotional intelligence. Clay told AD, I got the mortgage, you just move in. If we have kids, there's plenty of room. This home is in need of a woman's touch.
What you thinking, man? Like, I could fit the bill. Like, at the end of the day, like, I already paying for this mortgage, so you just hop right in.
Clay was putting together a vision for AD of them building a life together. Like, he was putting this in her head. And if there was any chance that he was gonna say no at the wedding, he should not have done this. Clay very much lacks emotional intelligence, and he does not realize the gravity of what he's doing. He's helping AD envision a life with him, envision a life with kids, envision a home together, and then he immediately pulls the rug right out from under her, and he does not see the harm in that. And not only that, I do not for one second believe that this is the first time he's done this. I'm pretty sure he's done this to multiple other women. Clay is a successful guy, and he shows off his success to these women, and I'm sure it helps him get laid a lot. Because when he showed off his house to AD was soaked. Her reaction to all of this was out of this world. And what Clay is doing is not wrong per se, but because he lacks emotional intelligence, I don't think he realizes the gravity of what he's doing. And this is just how it goes. Oftentimes women will see a successful guy and then they'll be like, oh, pick me. Next, let's talk about the families. Clay and AD meet Clay's mom, and Clay's mom got a lot of kudos on social media for the conversation she has with Clay's dad during the wedding. And honestly, I think she got more kudos than she deserved. Like, yes, it was a good conversation, but overall, Clay's mom is kind of meh to me. And I will get into that shortly, but basically, Clay and AD meet Clay's mom, and they talk about reconciling schedules. Clay is working all the time, and AD just wants some quality time with him, and she's not getting it. And during this moment, it was clear that Clay felt attacked, and his tone was like slightly combative, and I think he just felt that way because his sister and his mom were there, so he was like, I guess, a little embarrassed. And overall, in general, you just have to be very patient and very gentle with Clay. Another problem that I have, which we are gonna talk about later in the video. And Clay's mom gave the most generic response for this. She was just like,
if you love each other, you will make it work and you'll figure out each other's schedules.
And she also says, yeah, I've been married, so I know what I'm talking about. But also her marriage failed. And yes, she was married for a long time. I think she was married 20, 25 years or something, but her marriage still failed. And I just thought it was kind of weird she was disregarding that fact. And in this moment, I just thought Clay's mom was so unhelpful. And for Clay, it looked like it just went in one ear and right out the other. And I do want to talk about this moment. So it's clear that Clay is a mama's boy. And during this moment, I clocked that Clay was a mama's boy. And later on in the show, during the wedding, he admits that he's a mama's boy.
I love you, Mama.
I love you too.
I love you. I always was a mama's boy.
And this may sound like a stretch, but I don't think it is. Clay brought in his mom to help with this reconciling schedules problem with AD because he knew his mom would take his side. It is clear that Clay is not making time for his fiance and future wife, and the mom's response is, well, if you love each other, you'll make time. It's clear Clay is the problem in this situation, and the mom is not being helpful at all. And it just became very clear to me that the women in Clay's life have enabled poor behavior. Like, nobody really checks Clay when he does something wrong. And that's one of the reasons Clay likes AD so much. AD checks him and she does not let him get away with everything. Like, yeah, he does get away with some stuff, but AD doesn't let him get away with everything. After that, we meet AD's mom, and I absolutely loved AD's mom. So Clay talks about how he's worried about his relationship because his parents got divorced, and he's also worried that's gonna happen to him as well. AD's mom responds to him and says, your parents being divorced, that's on them, not on you. And for you to be focused on that is self-sabotage. And AD's mom also says, you can't be worried about divorce because you're setting yourself up for failure. You cannot take on your parents' failures. And I absolutely love that. That was probably one of the best moments of the season because AD's mom seems to be the only one talking some sense into him. And at that point, AD's mom was the breakout star for me. And yes, AD's mom's marriage failed too, but she didn't take the route of Clay's mom and be like, well, I was married for 20 so years, so I know. She didn't do that. She was just like, your parents' relationship is different from the relationship you're gonna have, period. And I absolutely love that. Then later on, Clay and AD have another one-on-one conversation. Clay is still concerned because his dad cheated in a relationship with his mom, and he's worried he's gonna cheat too. And he also admits he may not be mature enough for a marriage. And at this point, I'm wondering again, Clay, do you not know what you signed up for? This is supposed to end in a marriage. And like, for him to be so oblivious of what he signed up for is like pretty crazy. And during this moment, AD says something crazy too.
I'm okay with a yes or no at the altar. I can, pick myself up.
AD says, I'm okay with a yes or a no at the altar. The way my ears perked up when she said that. Like I said earlier, Julius Caesar, if you give this man an inch, he will take a mile. Why did she give him the option? And also, they didn't even bring this up in the reunion either. Why did she even give him the option? I don't want to blame AD, but this is partly her fault. Why did she even give this man an option? Clay is the type of guy, if you give him an inch, he'll take a mile. Like, if you give him the option to say yes or no at the wedding, he's gonna take that option. And then after that, sidebar, but kind of relevant, there was a part where AD was dragging Sarah Ann because she DM'd an engaged man. And I'm gonna talk about this more so in a separate video, but I was more so team Sarah Ann. And don't get me wrong, Sarah Ann was definitely morally wrong, but I have reasoning for this, which I'll talk about in another video. But in this moment, AD was doing entirely too much. AD should have just been like, Sarah, don't you think it was a little messy for you to message an engaged man and then just let Sarah Ann answer, leave the question at that? But AD kept pushing it. She pushed it further and further with Sarah. And then when Sarah gets back to the dock and has her breakdown while sitting with Jeremy, she says that AD needs to mind her own business. And I was on team Sarah. AD does need to mind her own business and worry about her own relationship because she's engaged to a man who's about to not marry her. Literally, AD was causing this drama with Sarah when her fiance has shown red flag after red flag after red flag, but she's worried about Sarah and what she's doing. Then we finally get to the wedding. Clay and AD make it to the altar. AD says, I do, and Clay says, I do not. And y'all, AD was embarrassed. This was peak embarrassment for her. And as a viewer watching this, I was embarrassed for her. And like I said before, what's the definition of a pick-me? A woman that is willing to do anything for male approval. She will embarrass or throw other women under the bus to achieve this goal. Heavy on the embarrassment part. And yes, what Clay did was horrible, but AD is partly to blame for this. AD gave him the option at the altar. On the earlier episode, she gave him the option, oh, you can say yes or no at the altar. But I don't think AD realized how embarrassed she would be if she went all the way to the altar and he said no. And yes, Clay is a terrible person, but also at the same time, I was not too mad at him because y'all, it's clear he lacks emotional intelligence and he didn't realize the gravity of what he was doing. Not that that makes it okay, but it was harder for me to be mad at him because I know he lacks emotional intelligence. And it begs the question, why did AD choose to go to the altar with this man in the first place? He has shown you red flag after red flag after red flag and you just ignored all of them. And then after that, Clay gives a bunch of bull confessionals and he mansplains her. And not only that, they have a conversation after the not wedding, and this conversation was so disgusting. I could have thrown up. AD was still reeling from this wedding that did not happen, and now she has Clay all up in her ear, and it just looked so pick me because it looked like AD has no backbone. And I don't blame her because in this moment I would have been an absolute wreck too, but I would have told him to get out. Not only did you leave me at the altar looking crazy, right after you're gonna meet up with me and then try to mansplain me about it? Sir, be serious. And then after the wedding, Clay also has a one-on-one with his dad. And his dad blames not having role models and like, nobody has role models. Have y'all not listened to J. Cole's role models? First things first, rest in peace, Uncle Phil. For real, you the only father that I ever knew. I get my bitch pregnant, I'ma be a better you. This was one of the biggest songs of 2014, and J. Cole just talks about how nobody got role models. Most men, most women, and most black people just don't have role models. And it's something everybody has to deal with. Clay, you're not special. And Clay uses this as one of his excuses during the reunion, and y'all, listening to Clay during the reunion was like listening to nails on the chalkboard. This man was just spitting BS the entire time and it was just so hard to listen to. And when we got to the reunion, I was just tired of hearing him talk because this man is so charming, but then after seeing how he acted this season and seeing the ending, you're just like, wow, all of that charm was bull. And AD fell for it and she got played. And then during the reunion, Clay gave multiple excuses as to why he did not marry AD. And one of them just being therapy. He's like, oh, I'm going to therapy now. I'm working on myself, yada, yada, yada. And this is one of the reasons I'm skeptical about therapy. I personally don't really believe in therapy, but that is a whole other video and a whole separate topic. But during the reunion, Clay says that he's worried about his morality and whether or not he's a good person or a bad person. And like I said earlier in the video, this is not Oedipus Rex. This is not a fate versus free will situation. If you want to be a good person, just be a good person. It ain't that hard. And then multiple times Clay says he's going to therapy and he's working on himself, which is great, but at this point it almost just sounded like excuses. And yes, he was kind of taking responsibility for his actions, but also at the same time, it just sounded like endless excuses. And then going back to the conversation that Clay's mom and dad had back at the wedding. So Clay's mom basically tells Clay's dad, Clay saw a lot of things when he was younger that he shouldn't have, and it's had an effect on him later in life. And this is part of the reason why this wedding did not happen. And this is another reason I don't necessarily rock with Clay's mom, because Clay was using his parents' relationship as an excuse for why he couldn't say I do. And now Clay's mom is blaming Clay's father for his behavior as well. Now, this is just my opinion. For the most part, everyone's parents do the best they can when parenting a child. They do the best they can. No parent is perfect, but they do the best they can. And once you're an adult, you have to recognize that. My parents were not perfect, but they did the best they could. And Clay at multiple times said he had as a good father, and his dad was a great father. And for Clay to be over 30 years old and blame his parents for his actions, or in this case, his inaction and not being able to get married, was just so crazy to me. And that's part of the reason I don't necessarily believe in therapy. Like what Clay's mom was telling Clay's dad after the wedding, you have to subscribe to the idea that, oh, the things that happened to you in childhood affect you later in life and you can't change that. And I very much believe you can. And Clay just needs to forgive his parents. He needs to realize his parents did the best they can, and he can't keep using them as an excuse for his behavior now, because to be over 30 years old and still doing that is crazy to me. And just two more things I want to mention from the beginning. First, I think Vanessa or Nick asked Clay if he regretted his decision, and Clay says he regretted his decision of saying no at the altar. And I hated that moment. So I really don't like this coulda, woulda, shoulda stuff, but for Clay to say that he made the wrong decision now a year later after the supposed to happen wedding is wild. And I'm sure that stung for AD even more to hear him regretting the decision he made. We could have had a happy ending and everyone could have been happy, but you chose not to. And now a year later, you're regretting it. Like, I know that stung for AD so much to hear that on that stage. And also, Clay is a Virgo, and this was definitely the evil Virgo side. But Clay only said that on stage because he wanted to keep AD on the hook. He wanted to keep her thinking that a wedding and a marriage with him is still possible. And to hear him say that was just so evil, because it's clear what he's doing. He just wants to keep her on the hook. And AD's response to this is what made her the ultimate pick-me. Vanessa and Nick asked if she'd still be open to dating Clay, and I believe her answer was like no response or something. It should have been a hard no. This man embarrassed you at the altar. Heavy on the embarrassment. He has shown you multiple red flags, and after a wedding that did not happen, a year later, he's saying he regrets it. And your response to that is you're possibly still open to dating him. Girl, you're the ultimate pick-me. I don't know if you can get more pick-me than that. And that's all I got for this video. I hope it wasn't too depressing. And let me know what you all thought about Clay and AD's relationship in the comments. Let me know if my thinking is far-fetched. Let me know if you had similar views. Put it below in the comments. I'm curious what y'all thought. And also, I plan to make another Love is Blind video about another one of the couples. Let me know below if you all have a preference on the next couple I talk about. I definitely want to talk about Laura, but let me know if there's another couple y'all would rather me talk about. I don't know what y'all, let me know what y'all want to see next, because I don't know. And just a heads up, I don't really want to talk about Chelsea. I feel like it would just be a 20-minute video about how insecure she is, but if y'all really want that, I guess I'll do it. And that's all I got. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one. Bye.